Welcome to Becoming Secure in Love, from push and pull to peace of mind, with me, Love Coach Mariya. On this show, you'll receive tools for relational health that you can apply wherever you are on your journey in love. You'll learn how to anchor your security within you so you can co-create balanced, interdependent relationships that fill your cup. Let's get the love flowing. Becoming Secure in Love starts now. Hello, I'm Love Coach Mariya, and you're listening to Becoming Secure in Love on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Stick with me for the next hour, and I'll do my best to blow your heart open. In every episode of this show, we examine the challenges that love can present and explore the various ways to shift from push and pull to peace of mind. The topic of this episode is love versus attachment. What's in it for whom? And before I dive into that, I do want to do a little terminology clarification, especially because this show is called Becoming Secure in Love, which is a reference to secure versus insecure attachment styles. And in the realm of psychology, when we talk about attachment as natural human bonding, that's one use of the word attachment. And there's another sort of realm in which we discuss attachment that's more sort of Buddhist lens. And that form of attachment is more about sort of clinging to things. And that's the type of attachment that I'm referring to in this episode when I contrast it to love. So attachment in the Buddhist sense says, I need you to make me happy. Whereas love says, I want you to be happy regardless of what it has to do with me. Ideally, people are self-fulfilled and they come together simply because they enjoy each other's company, not because they need anything from the other. They offer unconditional love and conditional support based on their fully owned limits or boundaries. And together they create synergy, enabling both of them to accomplish more than they could on their own. But again, not needing the other in order to become fulfilled or be happy. Now, needing people is a little bit tricky because we are social creatures and we do need other people. We just don't need specific individuals. With the exception of children, it really is best for a thriving, growing human to have a consistent set of caregivers. But once we reach adulthood, yes, we do still need people, but we don't need specific people. And granted, we do form bonds with people that get very deep, and it's beneficial to have that longevity and depth of connection. But no single one of those is worth sacrificing who you are, your values, your alignment, your truth, because the moment you do that, you're already sort of poisoning the well, and it's very detrimental to the relationship. If a relationship requires you to sacrifice yourself or step out of alignment or go against your truth, it's not a sustainable relationship anyway. So there's this, I've talked before about enmeshment and sort of codependence and how it's very normalized in our culture. And tied in with that is this notion of needing people. In fact, it's become very romanticized to feel needed. We have these deep desires to be needed. And in fact, it's almost hurtful when someone says, I don't need you. In fact, I've been there. I've had someone tell me that they don't need me. And I thought that they were trying to be mean, but they were actually trying to give me a gift and allowing me to be whatever I need to be and do whatever I need to do, and just enjoying my presence in their life without any needs for me to be anything other than what I am, or show up however I need to show up for me. So the act of needing another person is actually kind of dehumanizing, because we end up turning them into like a means to an end, instead of allowing them to be a richly dynamic, vibrant, living, changing, organic human being. This line of thinking leads us to one of the most common detriments in modern relationships. And another huge component of it, contributing factor to it, is in modern day life, we have completely lost the village. And so what we end up doing is putting all of those needs for social connection, so many of them get placed on one person, and we have just an unreasonable amount of expectations placed on one person. And that's, another thing that just stifles, the vibrance of what a relationship can be. And it's so crucial to have a very robust network of support and social connections, so that we don't lose sight of the abundance of resources that we have for those social connections and all of those needs that are valid. We do need to connect with other people. We need to feel belonging. We need sometimes validation for ideas, as I've mentioned before as well. I have a variety of friends that I go to for a variety of different reasons and different needs. I have friends who I can get really deeply spiritual with, and other friends that don't really go down that path with me. But, there are ones that I can just be really, I don't know, like casual and frivolous with, and go down rabbit holes about minutia that other of my friends wouldn't have the attention span for. So it's just, different people can meet different needs for us. So it's really important to have that variety. And, tying back into the Buddhist notion of attachment and how it's this clinging that we do, the sort of counter to that is a concept called impermanence. If you're not familiar with it, it's just, the notion that nothing is actually permanent, as much as our mind likes to tell us stories about how it is. Everything is always evolving and shifting and changing. And when we become attached to something, it's, one of the main sources of suffering, because nothing stays the same, and we end up getting hurt because we cling to this thing that's moving. It's like grabbing on to, a tree that's floating past on the river, and it just keeps going, and then like shreds your arm as it goes along because you're holding onto it so tightly. And, the beauty of impermanence is, I used to think it's, for many people, it's a source of fear and distress. The fact that nothing stays the same and things are always changing. There's a lot of unknowns involved in that. But I came to see it as a gift, because even though it means that the good things don't last, that actually makes them precious. And it's what enables me, when I remember the gift of impermanence, to really appreciate the good things while they're here, because I know that they won't last. And for some people, the realization that things aren't going to last makes them cling even tighter, but with enough practice and bruises from doing that, I think it tends to lead people to loosen up a little bit, and find the appreciation. Because, I mean, how many things have we taken for granted because there was too much of a good thing, or it went on for so long and we just kind of lost sight of its goodness? The fact of impermanence is really, again, helpful for remembering that the good things are precious and worth paying attention to and enjoying them while they're here. And then, of course, on the flip side, bad things aren't going to last long either. And that's what can help us persevere. Our mind likes to do what I call forevering. We get attached to this notion that whatever is our current state, our current circumstances are going to last forever. And whether it's a good thing and we're like, oh, this is wonderful, it's going to be like this forever. And then we're devastated when it's not. Or if it's a bad thing, we're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, it's going to be like this forever. I can't live like this forever. And we freak out. But neither of those things are true. And so we appreciate the good things and we trust that the difficult things will pass. This too shall pass, good or bad. And so impermanence can be a really wonderful gift that can help us not attach too much to all things that are temporary, which is all things. So speaking of non-attachment, I don't know what I'm going to talk about in the next episode. And I do like to be prepared, but I'm not entirely attached to it. I don't need to force it. And usually when I'm preparing for one of these episodes, by the time I sort of get to the end of what I want to talk about, like the next subject comes to me as like the next appropriate thing to do, and it hasn't yet. I trust that it will, but I want to just do a little side note opportunity to invite any of you to reach out and make a suggestion or a request. If there's anything in particular you would like me to talk about or address, would be happy to add that to my little bag of topics. And you can just email me at connect@lovecoachmariya.com. And my name is spelled Mariya. So the next thing that I want to dig into is basically how romanticism ruined love. But we're going to take a quick break first, and we'll get into that when we get back. You can find more about me at lovecoachmariya.com. Again, Mariya. And I really do hope to get some listener insights, and I'm always happy to talk about anything in this realm. So stay tuned to discover how romanticism ruined love. Welcome back to Becoming Secure in Love, from push and pull to peace of mind, with me, Love Coach Mariya. Again, you can find me at lovecoachmariya.com. And any women out there looking for a community around these topics are welcome to join me online. I've got 2 related free groups. One is on Facebook, and it's the group called Empowered Compassion. And if you're not into Facebook, kudos. And I also have the sister group is empoweredcompassion.community. Before the break, we were discussing Buddhist notions of attachment and how needing a specific individual sort of dehumanizes them and can really sort of suffocate the ever-flowing life force of a person in a relationship. So now we're going to look at how romanticism ruined love. And I borrowed that line from an author and philosopher who I really enjoy. His name is Alain de Botton, and he has a project, I suppose, called School of Life. And between his own publications and the School of Life project, he just has put out a bunch of articles and books, and he's done talks. He just has a lot of really touching things to say about love and how we can really ease up on the expectations that we place on it and bring a lot more grace to ourselves and our relationships. But he wrote something about how romanticism ruined love. essentially with fantasy and impracticality. We have this notion that that we ought to be, fully carried, and that someone should really just completely, blanket us and carry us, and that's not love, and it's not loving either to sacrifice yourself to fully carry someone else. I also like the notion that Ram Dass says that we're all just walking each other home. I think that love is holding someone's hand, but not carrying them. That can be very disempowering. And, it's almost disrespectful of the power and life force that each of us have to carry ourselves. And again, when we show up self-fulfilled, both two individuals are self-fulfilled and they come together, you can create this synergy and go farther than you could on your own. But when you start needing the other person, it just, you end up grasping and clinging and pulling them down with you. And that's, all covered in codependence stuff as well. So another beautiful gem that was shared in this treatise on romanticism is this, fact that an unfortunate fact of life that we will never be fully understood by anyone outside of ourselves. And this does cause suffering. It's something that we all want. We always want to feel understood, and other humans are always going to fall short of that to some extent in some aspects. And he says, though, that in relationship, we suffer with another, not necessarily because of them. And, life is full of unpleasant logistics and various minutiae and the mundane stuff of life. And, the idea that any of these are hindrances to joy and love results in so much relational conflict. And instead, they could be accepted along with every other imperfection of life and ourselves and each other and unromantic aspects of all of these pieces of life. And we could just accept them as intrinsic parts of the magnificence of being alive and being able to be in connection with others. And, when we can shift into that perspective, this can actually lead to a deepening of our connections. I love one of the examples that he gives is, that oftentimes, we might fight over the towels being on the floor or the dishes not being done. And, I hear in other circles, people say that that's not really what the fight's about. The fight's really about other things. And while that's true, another perspective that Alain de Botton suggests is that these things are actually important. This mundane stuff of life it's a pretty large percentage of our lives, and maybe adding a little bit of weight to them would allow us to communicate about them with some notion that there's maybe just a dash of something sacred in every little thing that we do and that makes up our lives and our days and our homes. And when we come to these things with that little extra bit of humility, I think that, a lot of what we're fighting about is this sort of anger that comes up about the fact that we're fighting about these trivial things. But if we stop seeing them as trivial, then we can maybe come together and get a little bit more collaborative on finding a solution, because it's worth finding. Food for thought. So regarding this tendency for us humans to become attached And again, in that sort of Buddhist sense of clinging to other specific people, I find that, again, aside from parents or caregivers and children, as adults, our romantic relationships are definitely the ones that we get the most attached to. And there are various reasons that this happens. And honestly, romanticism is part of it. And I use that word with a capital R. If you go back in human history, it is something that was invented. I could be wrong, but I want to say it was around the 1600s by, poets and playwrights. And they just invented all of these wonderful fantasies about what could be. But, based on not much that occurs in reality. It doesn't take into consideration any of the practicalities of life. It plays down a lot of the practicalities of life, as I was just saying. And it really distorts our hopes, our dreams, and our expectations about what a romantic relationship should be like. And then so you take all of that romanticism fantasy and couple that with our biology. And essentially you end up with a perfect storm for disappointment. So, every living thing, including humans, has a biological imperative to reproduce. At its very core, at a cellular level, that's like the reason every component of your body exists, is to reproduce. And because our species, with our big brains, does best when being reared by both parents within a larger familial community, our evolutionary response to that has us pair bond. It's a technical term. Humans do a thing called pair bonding. There are other species that do it as well. But what this means essentially is that we come with built-in reactions to specific stimuli that trigger chemical cascades in our brains and our bodies and cause intense feelings of love in us. And in particular, the Greeks were kind enough to break down a few different kinds of love. And I'm speaking of eros, that very particular type of love that we feel with a sexual partner. That, obviously not casual sex, but someone that we are romantically, sexually involved with. It puts, like I said, our minds tell these stories with romanticism, and then our bodies want to reproduce, and it dumps all these chemicals, and our bodies want us to bond and stay together long enough to make a baby and raise it. So, like a couple of years, honestly. And so we get filled with all of these really intense feelings about forever and meaning and needing and becoming one, and all of these things that just feed into this perfect storm of enmeshment that turns out to be pretty detrimental to our relationships and ourselves and our mental health. So it's something that is programmed into us, and it's something that we can start to kind of dig into and build awareness around and peel back some of the layers on, and kind of overcome the impulsive urges with it and begin making more conscious choices in response to the types of stimuli that activate these cascades. So there's a lot of programmed conditioning running our lives, actually, and building an awareness practice is very crucial. And one of the things that's important to start to build awareness around is, in addition to romanticism and biology, there's a lot of other modeling from our nuclear family, our immediate family of origin, as well as, societal messages that we get bombarded with as we're growing up. And building an awareness around this can also be really, really crucial. So I'm going to dive into that in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break, and you're listening to Becoming Secure in Love, from push and pull to peace of mind, with me, Love Coach Mariya. We'll be back in a moment to learn how to break through our programming. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Becoming Secure in Love, from push and pull to peace of mind, with me, Love Coach Mariya. You can find me online at lovecoachmariya.com. And women out there in need of a little extra support for their path of becoming secure in love, I do facilitate a virtual ashram called Peaceful Power Practice that really provides some routine and structure and guidance for working through all of these challenges that come up on this path. It's not easy, but it's very worth it. And this virtual ashram space is sort of like a spiritual fitness center, and it's a place that you check in with on a regular basis to develop lifelong habits, really to help you shift into a lifestyle of regularly tending to yourself and your self-love and your needs, and making sure that you are, really nurturing the roots of your internally rooted security, so that you can become self-fulfilled and show up to a relationship not needing anyone, and in fact, not really even wanting to be needed. Again, you can reach out to me at connect@lovecoachmariya.com to learn more about that. So before the break, we were exploring how romanticism ruined love. And now we're going to take a look at our unconscious programming. So when we were growing up, we got programmed by the way that our parents modeled their behavior for caring for themselves, for interacting with other people. All of this provided modeling for our growing brains. And at the same time, we also received a lot of societal messaging. And all of this sets us up for patterns. This is why you see a lot of people repeating the patterns of their parents, or even just their, macro cultures. Our brains are wired for the familiar. Evolutionarily speaking, the brain basically says, well, hey, let's take this path again because we went there yesterday and there was no saber-toothed tiger. So let's stick to that one instead of venture out on a new one that might get us killed. So what this ends up meaning is that, functional or dysfunctional, the comfort of the familiar, even if it's unpleasant, gets prioritized by our minds over the discomfort of the unfamiliar. And this is a safety mechanism that's built into us for survival. But blessed as we are to live in this day and age of not really existing in survival mode for the most part, most people these days, especially probably anyone listening to the show, you probably got your food, water, and shelter locked down. You probably don't have to worry too much about wild bears or saber-toothed tigers. But, the brain doesn't do a very good job of distinguishing between an actual threat to your physical safety and like a perceived threat to your emotional safety, or even like societal safety. A lot of our fears under a few layers really boil down to being rejected and shunned and kicked out of the tribe and left to die alone in the cold. This is why we fear judgment. This is why we fear abandonment. This is why we fear rejection, because not that long ago on a geological time scale, it could have meant death. It's also why we're afraid of public speaking. If we say the wrong thing and the tribe boots us, that's it, we're dead. So again, fortunately, our world is not so survival oriented, but our brain is still wired for it. So this type of awareness can really help us start to see and understand what our silly brains are doing. And speaking back to what I said about how these, the parental modeling and societal messaging sets us up for patterns, whether we like them or not. If we aren't aware of the fact that our brains are wired to repeat the familiar, we're probably just gonna. And this is why, you'll find a lot of people who grew up in an abusive home are highly likely to end up in an abusive relationship. As I said before, even if it's unpleasant, the comfort of the familiar is prioritized over the discomfort of the unfamiliar or the unknown. And something that's really important to keep in mind as you do your work and start to make your shifts, you're going to find that choices that you're starting to perceive as healthy feel really, really uncomfortable. For example, if you end a relationship with a person who was not a good fit for you, perhaps the dynamic was dysfunctional, and you decide that you just have to cut off all contact for your own well-being, and then time goes on and you really start to miss them. Their birthday comes out and you still care about them. You want to reach out to them and wish them a happy birthday, and it feels really weird not to. You're a loving person. You want to share your love with that other person. You want to share your love with the people you care about. But you also know where that will lead, and that it won't lead anywhere good. It's not going to lead back to a place of alignment between the two of you. In fact, it's probably going to bring you back into old patterns. And so you fight the urge to make contact, and it feels really, really uncomfortable, and it feels like it's not like you. And you wonder if it is an alignment. And to that, I say, we can't always assess our alignment by what our nervous system is doing. And this is why it's really helpful to have sort of principles that anchor your choices. And the principles that I like to choose are my values and goals. Things that I know from lots of time and experience are things that are very much aligned for me. And so if in a moment I'm having some anxiety about a decision that rationally I know is aligned for me, but in the moment it feels uncomfortable, I can know that I'm making the best decision because I do know that it's aligned with my values and goals, even though it feels weird and uncomfortable in the moment. And that's something that I really, if you take nothing else away from anything I've said, I think probably one of the most important things to realize is that as you're trying to make changes in your life and your well-being, it's going to be uncomfortable. And it's okay. And then, on a side note, it's also really important to get in touch enough with your body and your values and goals to be able to discern which instances of resistance that come up within you are that like, if it's a block or an ego thing or that discomfort of the unfamiliar, or whether it's actually a hard no, like, no, I'm just a no to this, versus like, gosh, I don't know, it feels like maybe it's the wrong thing to do, but maybe I've been just making that mistake my whole life, and maybe this is something I should lean into, and I guess I'm not really sure. I've been there, and it takes some time and some practice, but just keep your compass headed towards developing a level of connection with yourself, your body, and your values and goals, so that you can start to discern which types of resistance are the ones to listen to and which ones are the ones to just kind of push past and lean into. So having an understanding of our unconscious makeup allows us to witness it in action and learn to choose in accordance with our consciously selected values and goals, rather than our inherited and conditioned impulses. When we truly love someone, all we want is for their happiness and well-being. And when we truly love ourselves, all we want is for our own happiness and well-being. And we avail ourselves of our full range of resources to support our happiness and well-being. There are 9 main aspects to life that having a balanced approach means tending to all of them. Our thriving and well-being comes when all of these 9 aspects are tended to, and balance will feel different to each person, but it's important to make sure that you're checking in, kind of doing your rounds on all of them on a regular basis. So I will share with you what those 9 aspects are after one final break. You are listening to Becoming Secure in Love, from push and pull to peace of mind, with me, Love Coach Mariya, and learn about how to keep your foundation balanced when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Becoming Secure in Love, from push and pull to peace of mind, with me, Love Coach Mariya. You can find me online at lovecoachmariya.com. And if there's any women out there who would really like some one-on-one support on their journey, I do offer one-on-one coaching, and the first call is always on me. Feel free to reach out via my website, or you can email me directly at connect@lovecoachmariya.com. Before the break, we were exploring the ways our brain gets programmed. And now we're going to take a look at maintaining a balanced foundation. I was saying that there are 9 main aspects to life, and these make up our foundation. In order to really develop an internally rooted security, so that we don't get too attached to specific people and need them in order to be fulfilled, and by consequence of that, we can really do a lot of harm to our relationships, and it's pretty detrimental to the relationship with ourselves as well, because when we anchor our fulfillment outside of us, we end up just really unstable, and it's sort of like a vicious cycle for our insecurity, because it's why we're insecure, and it makes us insecure. And so it creates insecurity, and then we keep doing it because that's like, we're programmed to think that we have to look outside of ourselves, and everything outside of ourselves is constantly changing and in flux. Remember, impermanence. We're the only stable thing in our lives. And that's why we have to anchor our security within ourselves. And so part of doing that is really fortifying our foundation. And the 9 main aspects to life that sort of make up our foundation are relationships, career, finances, growth, experiences, contribution, mind, body, and soul. I'm going to tell you that one more time in case you're taking notes. Relationships, career, finances, growth, experiences, contribution, mind, body, and soul. Assuming the first 3 and the last 3 are fairly clear, I will expand a little bit on growth, experiences, and contributions. So these are our end goals. Whatever types of growth that we want to get out of life, the various ways that we want to grow. For me, it's a lot to do with personal development and relational skills. I also like growing in leadership skills, and other ways I like to grow are yoga and meditation. Those are my things. Other people might be into growth through sports, or mountain climbing, or parenting. There's just so many ways that we can grow in life. So a lot of the choices that we make are sort of mid-level goals to attain those end goals in the growth realm. A second realm of end goals is experiences. Different types of experiences people might aspire to are maybe travel, seeing the world. Again, parenting can be one, or I don't know, different things you want to see or experience. Scuba diving, talking in public, teaching, learning. Kind of running out of ideas on that one, but so experiences, again, similarly, a lot of the choices that we make are mid-level goals to attain that end goal of different experiences that we want to achieve in life or have in life. And then contribution is another end goal. Different ways that we want to contribute, and different people have different sort of aspirations of contribution, like different levels. Some people just want to contribute to their family. Some people want to contribute to their community. Some people want to contribute to a cause that is very important to them. Some people want to contribute to their country. Some people want to contribute to the world, or maybe even, I don't know, the solar system. Some people want to contribute to joy. I suppose that's a cause. So again, we make different choices for sort of mid-range goals towards those end goals of contribution. So tending to these 9 different aspects of your foundation can really help you have a balanced foundation. And when your foundation is imbalanced, it's sort of wobbly. And anytime you want to try something new or different, like what I was saying before, things that are unfamiliar or unknown are uncomfortable. And especially the unfamiliar things, they feel like they're going against our grain. And it's risky. It's risky to try something new. And if you've ever tried jumping off of something of some moderate to high height, if the platform you're standing on is wobbly, you're probably instinctually going to like drop to your hands and knees and not jump off of that thing because your instincts tell you you're probably going to get hurt. So having an imbalanced foundation is like having wobbly footing, and it's going to make it very much more difficult to take risks and try new things and try things outside of your comfort zone, things that feel different and unfamiliar, which is inherent in a path of growth and healing. Keeping all of these things tended to is kind of a unique blueprint for each person, and what feels like balance to one person might seem imbalanced for someone else. So when I talk about having balance among these things, that's for you to determine. And it's also worth noting that if you're having like extra difficulty in one of those 9 areas, chances are it's actually a reflection of neglect in another area. And the beauty of that fact is that not only do you like picture it like a spider web, and the spider's over here and the fly tugs on the opposite end and the spider feels it. So if your career is really struggling and you're not tending to contribution, when you go over, bring your awareness and your attention to contribution and start tending to that, you're going to see your career difficulties clearing up. And it's funny because sometimes it's also simply taking our mind off of the thing that we're really, really struggling with, that can be the salve as well. So balancing all of those aspects is really going to help you maintain a sturdy foundation. And the more that you, like I said, do your rounds. If you're feeling stressed or really, really struggling, like you're up against, beating your head against a wall in any one of those aspects, just take a break from it and check in with the other ones. And I'm willing to bet that some ease will come. So it's time now for me to wind things down. And I just want to thank you so much for listening. And I want to invite you to consider how you might empower your compassion in your day-to-day life. Just think of one way you could empower your compassion. As a reminder, I can be found at lovecoach.mariya.com. I do lead a free online community for women navigating the challenges of insecure relationships in the Facebook group Empowered Compassion and elsewhere at empoweredcompassion.community. I facilitate a virtual ashram for women working diligently to build the foundations of an authentically aligned life and a balanced interdependent relationship in a space called Peaceful Power Practice. And you can ask me about enrollment. And my standing offer is one-on-one coaching for women seeking guidance and tools for relational health. The first call is always on me. Reach out anytime via Facebook, my website, or email me at connect@lovecoachmariya.com. And with that, my friends, I bring this exploration to a close. I hope you'll join me again. And I'm not sure what our next episode will be about yet, but I hope that you'll give me some ideas. And I look forward to exploring whatever I'm inspired to share with you next. I'm Love Coach Mariya, and you are loved. Thank you for listening to Becoming Secure in Love, from push and pull to peace of mind, with me, Love Coach Mariya. Tune in every second and fourth Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com for an ample set of practical tools that will help you develop internally rooted security, the foundation of a balanced, interdependent relationship. You'll also learn how to empower your compassion, which will alchemize the soul and transform any relationship. Learn more at lovecoachmariya.com. That's lovecoach, MARIYA.com.